Okay, good morning, everyone. We're going to start with this webinar. Thank you for joining. Today, we're going to be discussing about automated payable invoices with procurement process integration, which is a Cloudteam Company application integrated in FinancialForce, called also as, or known also as PISA app. So my name is Diana Castaño, and I will be showing you and guiding you through all the process regarding this new integration. First of all, I want to talk and I want to speak to you about our company. We are a company founded in November 2014, and we have grown actually now to almost 27 experts. We work with general with Apex Development Center in Eastern Europe, and also we have done a lot of implementations released across Europe and some other countries outside Europe as well. Our services are focused on cloud ERP strategy and digital transformations, ERP processes implementations focusing in PSA, HCM, accounting to revenue recognition, and also SEM. We are also FinancialForce specialists, FinancialForce applications specialists. And we also work on app development for business-specific enhancements. We help to streamline your business. So one of our missions is to accelerate the performance of the companies and the employees, giving an effective and an integrated business processes. Our digital transformations is, as it is trending topic, using and connecting the cloud-based application is the future. So that's why we are focused on that. And we are doing it with FinancialForce and Salesforce combined to give you all the solutions that you need for your business. So let's now talk about the Payable Invoice Scanning app, which is the main focus of our webinar. So the Payable Invoice Scanning app, regularly it was developed in such a way that it can be easily supported and very good help for the users and mostly for accounts payable management. And it's a very straightforward process in which all your suppliers can send an email with your invoice to your email box. Then through the OCR encoding, which is managed by DC Data, our partner for OCR, this will enable the PDF view in which after some steps will be enabled for validation for the users to validate all the important information that is retrieved from the invoice. Then if it's needed, and some companies want to track and to make sure that all the expenses and costs registers for purchases are approved, so an approval process can be also configured for this aim. And at the end, what it happens is there's a distribution in which basically we record the bookings for the financial system, FinancialForce account. So the suppliers will send directly the digital invoices to the IP email address, as I mentioned. But what I want to show you today is that an additional release has been done, an additional upgrade, sorry, has been done to this application, because as we have various customers in which we found out that they also use the supply chain management FinancialForce module, and for them it's needed to be able to track or to match the purchase orders with the quantities and the prices that are being registered there after receipt. We saw the need of this, so that's why we decided to also map the purchase order with the supply chain, sorry, with the purchase order with the payable invoices scans. And the payable invoices process, basically. So now an additional process that it was added to the flow of the payable invoice scan is the PO match, in which the system looks for the corresponding purchase order details, and once it's identified, is fetched from the supply chain management system. And then the rest of the process, or the flow of the process, goes through as is known. So we have, as I was mentioning, payable invoice scan has various queues in which we can identify, or we can track what is the status or the current status of the invoice that has been sent by the supplier. So I was mentioning that the first status will be the scanning in progress, in which the OCR will retrieve all the fields and check all the fields. Then after it goes through and it goes smoothly, it will land it to the ready for review queue, which is the first queue in which the user of AP area mostly will review the status, all the data retrieved. I already had an example, as I mentioned, so that one is in review in progress, in which I already checked it and reviewed it, but I saved it because I needed to confirm some information on our data. So I'm gonna go ahead and again to that record, and I'm gonna show you how it looks. So once it lands once the user, it comes here and starts to review, the system will automatically retrieve information such as the vendor's account, the invoice number, the invoice date, the totals, and so on. Here, down below, the PDF, we can see what is the OCR results, which is basically the captured data from the PDF. And here we have all the list of captured data. Okay, so for example, we have the invoice number, which is being picked from the invoice number in the PDF. And this is a really good view because you can just compare from one screen to the other. So you can easily check what is wrong and what is in place. Also, for example, details like the bank IBAN number, it comes from the account. So if these fields are properly indicated in the fields on the account or configured, then the system will recognize them here as well. The due date is also a configuration that it comes from the invoice scans workflow. The invoice scan workflow detects based on the email sent, and is another setting that it will enable some features, like, for example, the invoice due date. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So, for example, when the application is installed, you have the default invoice scan workflow, which is the first workflow that you should enable. In this workflow, what you have to indicate, or the options that you have to configure, is accepted file extensions, which there's many enabled, like GIF, doc, XML, and also this other for here, PDF and PNG. So these are like the most common ones, but you can add as many as you like. Also, the email services address prefix should be indicated here, which is the same email indicated in Salesforce email services. And this is the check that I was talking about. Use contract invoice due date, which means it will be taking the vendor invoice date, vendor base date, and the days of set, configuring the Salesforce account. And then in that way, they will calculate the due date for the invoice. Yeah. So as many companies you have or you would like to be able to receive these scans, as many companies you have, as many scan workflows that you would need to create. So let's go back to our scan. And here we can see that's where it's from, it's bringing this information. Okay. So now let's go and check the new functionality. So with the new functionality, the idea is that if the purchase invoice or purchase order is indicated in the invoice, so then the system should identify it right away here in this detected PO header purchase order. Okay, so as we can see, it's already identified. Now what we need to do, next step, is just that we need to hit the map PO lines button. And the map PO lines button will bring this grid in which we can see the lines, the purchase order lines that from the receipt in SCM, in supply chain management, FinancialForce. So in here showing us like, okay, we received this quantity for this purchase amount, and if everything is okay with you, you just can select it and click on save. Once it's saved, then the system will switch the expense account for the product because it's related to a product once it has the purchase order linked. So it will change it to the product, and then it will display in the lines, in the booking capture lines, the quantities and also the tax codes if they are involved, and it will make the calculations of the net value and so on. In the booking capture lines, it means that this is the lines that it will be populated later on in our purchase invoice or payable invoice. In here, as you can see, you can also indicate dimensions if there's dimensions that needs to be indicated, and the date from, date to fields are basically for revenue recognition management. So these two fields can be in some way linked to the revenue recognition management application as well. So now that is safe and all our totals are balanced, what we just can do is click on save. And then if there's no approval process involved, like in this case, because I am the only approver, we can just submit it to payable invoice process, hitting this button, or we can just send it for approval. It will run the approval process, and then when it's approved, it will land in one of the queues in here, in approval in progress or approved. So if it's approved, then the next step is for the person on charge of payable invoices to create the payable invoices record. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just submit to payable invoice process. And what it will do is that it will create the invoice, the payable invoice record. So it says the invoice scan has been successfully saved and the payable invoice successfully processed. So I'm going to just refresh. And now it should show me a link to the purchase order and to the payable invoice. Yeah, so here we have it. So we have the purchase order link and the payable invoice link too. So I'm gonna open this one in another tab to show you how it looks. And I'm gonna go back to the purchase order in the meantime, and I will refresh it. And now an IP voucher should be created automatically from the PISA application. So that will trigger both processes at the same time. Yeah, so if I go to the related list, in my related list, I will be able to see my IP voucher. Then I click on the IP voucher. The IP voucher is like a confirmation in supply chain management to be able to do the three-way matching, but it's basically the same payable invoice. So that's why we're gonna link the payable invoice from FinancialForce in here, because it's basically the same record. So now the AP voucher is created automatically, which before was a manual procedure. So that's why we decided to link it with Payable Invoice Scan app. And then now what I will expect is that if I match this AP voucher, which is basically making the three-way matching, it will also populate the payable invoice number automatically. So I will just go ahead, click on match IP voucher. And there you go. So this is the payable invoice number. And now the purchase invoice doesn't need to be pushed to FFA from SEM, because now we're going to run through this process with the Payable Invoice Scan app, and then it will make the costs, bookings, and so on. So if I go to the invoice now, the invoice will show us the product line, the item, the quantities, the net value, and the input tax code, and the invoice total, and so on. So this is the purchase invoice record. And if we check the transaction, in the transaction, it will show us the bookings, like to what general ledger accounts was booked, and so on. So in that way is how we will record and make the procedure, the three-way matching with the supply chain. Here, you can see it. If we click on View All, it will show us the bookings in the general ledger. There it is. So, and the last comment I have to add to this is that also from the workflow, you can enable, if you want, the purchase invoice to be posted right away or once it's approved, or if you want the purchase invoice to stay on a hold status while it's approved, and that should be enabled from here. Needs to be post payable invoice on the workflow. So that's it. Now I will give you some space for questions or queries if you have some. Just let me know and I will be reading them in the chat, or just let me know. Okay, I already have some question from Jaco. What is the rate of SEOCR? How much needs to be adjusted manual in general? Yeah, that's a good question. The rate, you can indicate it here. The minimal by default is 15, and it has to be indicated and enabled in the default invoice scan workflow. So here, as you can see in this field. Another question? Someone else? Okay. So yeah, just to finalize, I want just to let you know if you want to get in contact for further queries or just to obtain this application with the new release as well. You can get in contact with me with my email. This is my email, or to Ralph Hartendorp. If there's no more questions in place, so that will be it. Thank you for watching.